Hi, thanks for joining us again. This is Adam Hillhouse, and today I'm joined by Miss Carol Ross Barney, FAIA, founder and principal of Ross Barney Architects. Located in Chicago, Illinois, Ross Barney Architects has successfully served a diverse group of clients designing projects for new work, additions, renovations, and planning. In 2005, Carol was the recipient of the Thomas Jefferson Award for Public Architecture, an award recognizing personal excellence in architectural achievement. Carol, it is quite an honor to speak with you this morning.
Well, thank you.
Your upcoming session at this fall's conference is entitled Aesthetics and Sustainability. Can you briefly outline what our listeners can expect to hear?
I'd be glad to. I have to tell you that I really do think that sustainability is the challenge for this generation of architects. You know, in a way, every generation has their challenge. You don't pick it, but the idea of doing architecture, building buildings, making environments, making societies, communities that are easy on the earth, I think it's probably more desperate than that. That's what our group, our generation, and especially the future generation, that's what we're going to be doing. So one question that our clients have asked us, one in particular, a few years ago we were commissioned to do a platinum building for a Jewish congregation. It was the Jewish Reconstructionist congregation in Evanston. And they were very adamant that their building had to have the lightest touch on the earth. But they thought that their role also required that they basically wear the clothes. And so they said, this building has to look sustainable too. And that was the first time anybody put that to us quite that way. We took it very seriously, and it started, at least for our studio, an entire thought process about what does sustainable look like. Is there is there an aesthetic to it? And interestingly enough, I think it takes you back to the roots of architecture and what's good architecture. Basically, the best architecture reflects its time, its function, and its materials. And actually, doing sustainable architecture and the aesthetics of sustainable architecture isn't that different. But because you're looking for technologies that are new, it can make a building really striking and really exciting. I'm going to talk about some of our recent projects where the idea of expressing the major conceptual idea, which in this case can be sustainability, was our primary goal. So one of them, for example, is the University of Minnesota Duluth, a civil engineering building. And you think about civil engineers, and that people say that prostitution is the oldest profession on the face of the earth. I think, though, they may be behind civil engineers because you had to have a place to live, and that means you had to hold out the elements. So civil engineers, basically making a place where people can stay, is really a very old profession. And so the building that we did, what we tried to do is express those basic functions that engineers have been doing for so long. So, for example, stormwater and holding stormwater off and channeling it to the right places is a really important aesthetic expression in the building. And we found those types of thought processes to be really helpful in creating an architecture that's about our age.
Great. How does the craft of architecture and the engagement of materials play into your practice?
It's very important. And the challenge, I think, now for us is finding the resources and the time to do the research that we need to comfortably use materials. There's a couple of things that are really interesting. One is materials are probably the answer to a lot of the future issues that architecture will have to solve. And that's from their origin, what they're made of, if they're sustainable, down to detailing, because buildings are very technical now. That's complicated by the fact that every building, at least right now, is a handmade thing. if you were designing cars or aircraft or even, a milk container, you get to test it over and over again and make sure that it works. Architects don't have that luxury. They just don't. And so the research that you do about materials and materiality to make the best choices for your clients is really at your, it's part of your process. I was going to say at your expense, and that's partly true. So that right now, that's the biggest challenge. But the crazy thing about it, or the good thing about it, is material research is also most exciting to us right now. Again, I just talked about a building we did in Duluth when we were working in Duluth. We found that taconite, which is mined in the Iron Range area, the market, we'd have to explain, taconite is the rock that bears iron ore. And about 5-10 years ago, taconite, the mines were closing because there wasn't very much new U.S. steel being made from new ore. And so the Iron Range Recovery Board asked us to look at using taconite as a building stone. And there are a whole set of considerations that come into play. And our research not only told us about the economic viability of that idea, but also it gave us information about how to detail the material and how it could be used. So it's a very exciting area. I think it's the future, but right now it doesn't have a home in architectural services, and it needs to have one.
When you're working with diverse materials, are you finding materials that you want to use and designing around them, or are you designing and then finding materials and trying to make them fit into the design?
Actually, both. I can't tell you that it'll happen one way or the other. We've had, for the synagogue that I talked about earlier, it's the entire exterior, the entire skin is made out of recycled lumber. It's recycled from mushroom huts that were demolished in upstate New York and southern Ontario. And we knew about that wood before the contract was let. So it was an advantage. We knew the cost. We knew the dimensions. We knew the quantities before we actually designed the building. So that was a huge advantage. Not always that way. The other building I just talked about in Duluth, we also used recycled wood there, but when we were under construction, we couldn't get what we thought was available. And so in that case, instead of using, we were thinking we'd use sinkers, hardwood that was floated down the Great Lakes and never made it because it was hardwood and it sunk, was very dense. There's a business that was resurrecting those, bringing them up from the bottom, and they went out of business before the building was completed. So instead, we ended up using recycled pickle barrels, which left us the interesting, it wasn't really a dilemma. It was just sort of, people taste and smell architecture too. When you were near this building, you could smell the vinegar from the pickles.
Wow.
Fortunately, that aged away, or maybe it's not fortunate. There's something about the taste and smell of buildings that probably isn't discussed enough.
Absolutely, absolutely. Carol, just generally, what is your definition of great design?
The word I've been using about great design is that it's holistic, that the systems support each other, that it's almost a biological type of construct in the end. I don't think design is very good when you have to add one layer of systems to correct the problems with another layer of systems. Layering up buildings, leaving room for the mechanical, the electrical, rather than integrating them, has always struck me as lacking craft. The other definition of great design, though, is how well it describes and meets the purposes of its people. Everything you do is for a community, and it's really important that those needs and expressions are met.
Great thoughts. We're running a little bit short on time, but I just wanted to give you an opportunity. If you had to narrow it down, is there one main idea that you hope our listeners will take away from your upcoming session?
The main idea is that design, the value of design is there. It's there for people. It's economic also. And it really takes a dedication by the owner and the design professional to bring it through. And I think architects are the right people to do that, and I just want to inspire them to do it. I want to remind them that it's there. We do such a hard thing. Sometimes you go home and you go, oh man, nobody's told me anything nice for the last 10 weeks or whatever. I used to think that dentists got more compliments than architects because, you're working not directly with the users of the building, and, it's a hard profession. And, the other thing, though, is architects almost uniformly they're not just workers. It's a vocation to do this. And I want to remind us of why we do it.
Well, that's great. Very inspiring words. Thank you so much for your time this morning, Carol. And most importantly, thank you for your continued and your inspiring work that your firm does. I really look forward to your session at this fall's conference, and I wish you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Adam. I'm looking forward to the conference, too. You have some great speakers. I'm going to listen to a lot of them.
Great. Well, I look forward to meeting you this fall.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye-bye.